multilateral system looks at how to ensure that we leverage critical minerals for shared and common prosperity. Now, South Africa is part of the African Union. We speak about our value proposition for the rest of the world. We speak about Agenda 2063 of an inclusive and prosperous African continent. Now, when we speak about multilateralism and critical minerals, of course, there's a foundation. The UN Secretary General Guterres have issued a special report on critical minerals and beneficiation. The African Union Commission in December 2024 published its critical and green minerals strategy, and all African Union states was supposed to domesticate that strategy. Of course, South Africa have done it. But the pitfall is not necessarily all states with the necessary endowments have domesticated its critical mineral strategy. So what we are still having is there is a pitfall in relation policy certainty, but there is an ambit of which African states could be engaged on using the purview of the AU Commission strategy document. Now the question that we should pose is why then is the partners of the African continent and of African states have a preference for bilateral agreements on critical minerals. And I'm raising it because the single greatest danger when we look at critical minerals endowments is to ensure a pathway of narrow national interests as opposed to what we need to achieve on the African continent. And I'm saying so, Mr. Moderator, because there's a detailed monograph on how the African continent, broadly speaking, has historically been exploited. So when we speak about critical minerals today, we must ask a very imposing question: critical for who? Is it critical as a catalyst for Africa's own prosperity in a renewed partnership with your more industrialized economy? Or is it critical as it relates to a very dogmatic economic pathway for the rest of especially your industrialized economies? And I think that is a key critical issue. Why I'm raising this is that you look, for example, in a country like Botswana. It's a major diamond producing country. In fact, if you look at the entirety of the world in terms of the quality of the diamonds, it's right up there. Now there's a multilateral framework that guides diamond producing. It's called the Kimberley process. It's a UN consensus-based initiative. Because of the war in Ukraine, the G7 nations then produced its own, what they call G7 Diamond Initiative, which is a unilateral mechanism, supposedly to counter illicit flows of diamonds, especially from the Russian Federation. But it's a complete antithesis to a unilateral, consensus-based, system and initiative. And that's why I want to agree that I think we are sitting with a dilemma where narrow national interest seems increasingly to supersede the universal good of all nations of the UN. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister. So we heard from Africa, from Latin America, and coming to view from Europe, Chief Security Advisor. Your perspectives on what's going on around the globe. What are the main risks? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say this is a tremendous forum. First time I participate, and I'm very thankful to Turkish government for this opportunity to be together here in this panel. I'm the only European representative, and together with American and African representatives and ministers. And comparing with you, there is a difference. Lithuania doesn't have any critical minerals. And we are not processing critical minerals. We are consumers of critical minerals. We produce components which are important for technological development. And we therefore, it sounds why we are here, because we are very much interested in participating in multilateral cooperation, as some of the ministers already said about that. But the problem is, really, it was referred by one of the ministers, that we are witnessing really tectonic change in the world order. And rules-based order is crumbling, and power politics is gaining momentum. And in this respect, I must admit that Russia, with the war against Ukraine more than 4 years ago, started this process. And at the same time, there is a big wave of technological competition. And this technological competition means that, for technological development, new revolution of artificial intelligence and green transition, we need resources. Some years ago, economic security was related to fossil fuels, only oil. And now we see that critical minerals, scarcity of critical minerals, brings a very negative element. It becomes a political leverage. If it becomes a political leverage, then of course we see a fierce competition. Who controls the critical minerals? And in this respect, of course, I don't want to criticize any country, but there is a fact that France and China, they control almost half of all critical minerals, extraction of critical minerals, and especially when it comes to rare earth minerals, then almost 90% of processing. It's not bad in itself, but when it comes to a political instrument, then of course it could be a problem. And in our case, what we are very much interested to have secure, diversified supply chain when it comes to critical minerals. If one piece of the chain falls out, then of course supply chain work. And therefore, we are very much engaged in the European Union and on so-called technological autonomy. And I understand that the EU is working with many African and Latin American beneficial agreements. And I fully understand that developing countries, they don't want to be simply countries just extracting minerals and don't have proper value added. And we are very much in favor of having a close partnership with the United States. those who produce some technological, advanced equipment, both artificial intelligence or green difficult, and therefore we will be trying to be
which segments of the value chain, what kind of partnerships, some details would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think indeed that there is a lot of convergence in this panel. On the challenges that we face. The question, of course, is there convergence in the way we tackle them at a national level? You know, and I want to believe that there certainly is. Looking at these global challenges that we face, one obvious priority for the DRC, again, is occupying more space on the value chain. We have the world's largest supply in cobalt, over 60%, nearly 70%. We have high levels of lithium, of zinc, of tin, everything you basically need in terms of these critical industries that are playing a greater role, you find to a certain level in the DRC. But to be very frank, the level of exploitation is one that has been over decades limited to sole mining and exportation. So obviously, our priority is to invest in our most precious resources. And our most precious resource in the DRC, it is not the cobalt, it's not the lithium, it's not the zinc, the tin, or the germanium. It's the people. This is the key priority in the DRC. It is investing in people and not in mines. It's investing in minds, not in mines. So seeing how we can occupy a greater space along the value chain in terms of building capacities in transformation and in processing of natural resources is a key element. But it's also looking at the issue of critical minerals in a more holistic manner when it comes to development models, and not just limiting ourselves to sole extraction and value addition, but actually building ecosystems around these critical minerals. I want to highlight one particular example, and I'm happy to see that we have amongst our audience, our brothers from Zambia, from Angola. We look at the Lobito corridor. I think this is a very, very illustrative way of looking at this issue of ecosystems. The Lobito corridor has, if you want, reduced to the most simple caricature, is a pathway to extract and to export goods from Africa to the Atlantic Ocean. But it's more than that when you have the ambition to invest in people and communities. It is the opportunity to invest in energy. It is the opportunity to invest in infrastructure. It is the opportunity, therefore, to invest in human capital that is that is empowered to play a bigger role in their communities. So I think for us, it's critical to look at this aspect of the value chain and not just limiting ourselves when it comes to natural resources and critical minerals to those critical minerals, but seeing what can we build around them. What is the knowledge we build around them? What are the infrastructures we build around them? And how do these infrastructures create an economy that is more inclusive, that is more representative? And also looking at these critical minerals and these ecosystems as pathways to regional economic integration and to stronger communities that go across the borders. The DRC is a country as large as Western Europe with 9 neighbors. There is no way we can aspire to national prosperity without bearing in mind what it means to to work together with our respective neighbors. So we look at a project, an initiative like the Lobito Corridor as a pathway to shared prosperity. And shared prosperity also means shared interest and then shared capacity, if you want, to have one voice, to speak with one voice, and to make sure that concerns are expressed in a coordinated manner, like my brother from South Africa was insisting on. At the same time, as I said, the DRC is a very large country. We also see in other parts of our country the challenges that we face when it comes to regional economic integration when we have conflicts. So I think it showcases to what extent, in order for Africa to speak with one voice, we also need to do our homework back home. And this is an issue, you know, of seeing how do we overcome these conflicts that are still preventing us as an African continent to speak with one voice. It is difficult to do so when you are not seeing eye to eye with all of your neighbors. So I think whilst we push and whilst we embrace the theory of African countries speaking in a more united manner, at the same time, we also have to face the reality of conflicts still being prevalent in some African countries and us needing to push an agenda that looks beyond the short-term gains that some countries may hope to have from instability and from fueling conflict to the long-term gains that we can have both at the community level but at the continental level. So I think this is a delicate balance we need to strike, and that is very difficult to dissociate from national interests. So from national strategies, it is clear that for the DRC, our outlook is to see how do we strengthen our own communities, how do we strengthen our own people and our own capacities to play a bigger role, but at the same time, how do we also strengthen our connectivity with our neighbors for a stronger African continent? I think it's very difficult to dissociate the two, and it's not one of our ambitions, if you want. Our ambition is to see how are we stronger in the heart of Africa to make sure that the African continent also can speak with a stronger voice.
Thank you, Minister Wagner. Minister Butale, coming to you. Your national strategies and priorities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think from our perspective as Botswana, looking ahead, our strategy is deliberately focused and anchored on value addition, value creation, diversification, and strategic partnerships. I want to state that we have, as I said in the beginning, learned our lessons from overly depending on a single commodity. So we want to diversify beyond a very important commodity. Diamonds remain very important. They remain the mainstay of our democracy, but we will be diversifying into copper, nickel, coal bed methane, and other rare earths that we do have huge potential on. We want to deliberately and intentionally promote local beneficiation to capture more value domestically. I want to say here that we have learned our lessons, and as my sister was emphasizing, we also have a slogan that in order for us to have our communities participating meaningfully into our economy, we need to look beyond diamond mines to diamond mines. So that is a slogan that we do have, and it forms part of our transformation plan. We also have plans to strengthen our energy security, especially through solar. This is for also the regional market. This would also require massive infrastructure upgrades, also looking regionally. But we also, the last point would be partnerships, both regionally and internationally. And I think my sister summed it well to say that we need to look at the potential that we have in critical minerals as pathways to regional integration. And I would like to state here that Botswana has paid the school fees on behalf of all our sisters and brothers after years of exporting raw diamonds. We have developed capacity in terms of the cutting and polishing of diamonds, and therefore we need to work together as from a regional perspective and also at the continental level. Instead of exporting raw materials individually and earning very little from them, let's jointly build industries so that we can enjoy shared prosperity. And I think it's also important here to state that all these mechanisms that we have, my sister gave an example of the Lobito corridor and the proposed collaboration model that Angola has put in place and solicited and provided an opportunity for participation by countries in the region. I think this is very, very important. The vision that our president has is that we can do more together. How do we ensure this integration? We must then look at policy coherence, as somebody said. We must look at policy coherence. We must ensure that we harmonize our legal frameworks to ensure that there is meaningful collaboration. So Botswana aims to become a reliable, value-adding, and sustainable critical minerals partner so that we can together, starting with the SADC region and the continent, translate our resources, our mineral resources, into long-term economic growth. This is critical, and I think together we must begin to put our heads together and say that we will not pay the school fees that some of us have paid. There's no need for any country on the continent of Africa to make the same mistakes. We must begin at the level of value addition and make sure that we industrialize, make sure that we create the jobs that our people need, so that there is stability in our countries, so that our people can enjoy an improved livelihood. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Butale. So value-added growth and people-centric transformation and growth. That's what we heard. Minister Aramoyo, your national strategies, your priorities.
Thanks so much. Compartimos naturalmente mucho de lo que han comentado los hermanos acá de la África. Creo que lo primero que nos va a tocar hacer es sentarnos todos juntos para poder acordar estos aportes a un multilateralismo que se está viendo desafiado por minilateralismos que van generando tal vez un camino que para nosotros como país, en Bolivia, nos plantea un desafío que es muy importante. Entender que este puede ser un momento en el que podamos más bien pensar más allá de los minerales críticos. Creemos que en el pasado la minería asociada al estaño, al petróleo, nos ha dado importantes lecciones que tenemos que internalizar para poder ver cómo trabajar a partir de esos aprendizajes en un mejor aprovechamiento de los minerales críticos. Coincidimos plenamente en que hay que humanizar el debate, que tiene que ponerse a las personas al centro, hacer del aprovechamiento de los minerales críticos que tenemos en Bolivia los recursos más grandes de litio, alrededor del 23% de las reservas en general, la reserva más grande del mundo en indio. Chile y Perú, por ejemplo, y aquí aprovecho para saludar a nuestro representante de la comunidad andina, tienen un nivel de exportación de minerales de alrededor de 47.000 y 56.000 millones de dólares al año. Bolivia tiene un nivel de exportación de 5.000 millones de dólares. Eso da cuenta de un potencial enorme, porque si bien tenemos reservas de las más importantes del mundo en minerales críticos y tierras raras, todavía somos un país que tiene un nivel de subinversión importante en la extracción y aprovechamiento de minerales. Creemos que es importante entender los minerales críticos desde la perspectiva del país como un recurso que tiene que permitirnos dar el salto aspiracional que siempre hemos ambicionado, el de la industrialización. Sabemos que no es algo que se pueda lograr a corto plazo. Por eso nos interesa que el aprovechamiento de nuestros minerales críticos, además de tener que ser utilizados con responsabilidad en el sentido de evitar que alimenten estos escenarios de disputa y de tensión, deben permitir un acceso plural y democrático, pero también somos realistas en el sentido de que el uso de nuestros minerales críticos son una oportunidad para que Bolivia pueda recuperar capacidad de negociación, un asiento importante en espacios de decisión, un mecanismo que nos permita también atraer inversiones, pero de mediano y largo plazo. Estamos por eso en el interés de poder trabajar con muchos países. Ese es un contenido fundamental del relanzamiento de nuestra política exterior. Creemos que la política exterior boliviana tiene que hacer de la minería crítica uno de sus contenidos más importantes para poder trabajar con diferentes países. También hemos pensado de forma reiterada en la necesidad de entender el aprovechamiento de los minerales críticos en una perspectiva integral. Por eso mencionaba al inicio la transición energética, las innovaciones tecnológicas, y estamos convencidos de la importancia de reimpulsar el multilateralismo o los multilateralismos, porque la condición geográfica de Bolivia, que lo conecta con 5 países en Sudamérica, hace que tengamos un pie en el Mercosur, otro pie en la Comunidad Andina de Naciones, que estemos también en diferentes otros foros a los que queremos aportar precisamente con una estrategia que piense los minerales críticos más allá solamente de Bolivia. Creemos también que es importante entender que los minerales críticos tienen que proponer un nuevo modelo de negocios, un modelo de negocios que pueda permitir incorporar aspectos como la justicia ambiental, las salvaguardas socioambientales y que puedan tener la posibilidad de mostrarnos un camino más sostenible, menos dañino para el medio ambiente, en tanto aprovechamiento de ellos, y que nos permitan en algún sentido también poder entender que este tiempo de la minería crítica es también un tiempo para reflexionar para qué y para quién los minerales críticos. Coincidimos con lo que se ha planteado en este foro en ese sentido, y por eso insistimos que ver minerales críticos para países que tenemos esta cantidad de recursos tiene que desafiarnos a ver una matriz de desarrollo mucho más allá del extractivismo o la discusión sobre regalías. En ello creemos también que el involucramiento de la sociedad es fundamental. Creemos que hay que construir una política pública, una política de Estado que tenga legitimidad de origen, que pueda lograr acuerdos de base social para que estos se sostengan más allá de los tiempos políticos de los gobiernos. Creemos que hay un elemento que es complejo en el tiempo actual, porque el tiempo de la política, como lo hemos observado en nuestro propio país, de 5 años a veces limita que podamos generar políticas de Estado de mediano y largo plazo. Esto, además de debilitar la confianza que pueden tener inversores para poder realizar inversiones sustantivas de mediano y largo plazo, nos está desafiando a encontrar otros mecanismos de gobernanza que nos permitan también ver cómo la sociedad en su conjunto puede ser un puntal fundamental de la definición de las estrategias que los estados tengan y darle continuidad a los acuerdos para poder generar escenarios de mayor confianza. En ello creemos que esta acción que venimos desarrollando en la construcción de acuerdos bilaterales con países como Brasil, por ejemplo, para compartir espacios de industrialización, o con Chile, o aprovechar los puertos peruanos, o reactivar minilateralismos como el que tenemos con Uruguay o Paraguay, tienen que ser pensados en el marco de una arquitectura mucho mayor. Y esto creemos que nos convoca también a ser responsables en la perspectiva de poder trabajar desde este enfoque con otros espacios que nos parecen fundamentales. Y por eso también creemos que la presencia latinoamericana, a pesar de las distancias en la relación con países del Asia, del Oriente Medio y del África, es fundamental, y que los minerales críticos pueden ser un camino porque compartimos preocupaciones, compartimos aspiraciones sobre su aprovechamiento, y creemos que teniendo objetivos comunes podríamos replantear también un tiempo diferente de la geopolítica, de la geoeconomía alrededor de este recurso. Gracias.
Thank you, Minister Aramayo. Moving to Deputy Minister Botes, your national strategies and priorities for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Once again, let me just reiterate that South Africa, in April of 2025 have documented its critical and green mineral strategy, which is a direct expression from the African Union Commission Green and Critical Mineral Strategy published. So I think it's important that the audience appreciate that. Of course, our further ambition is expressed through the G20 Critical Minerals Framework Strategy, evidently because we chaired the G20 last year. And the development of Africa necessarily can't happen without partnerships with your more industrialized economies. So it's quite important that the audience appreciate fully what is the optics from the more industrialized economies as it relates to critical value chains, beneficiation, value addition, trade corridors, and supply routes. The 6 key issues that is reflective in the body of our ambition. One, it speaks about the expansion of our knowledge base, geological system. That includes exploration investment. Now this is important, Mr. Moderator, because beyond the current repository of critical minerals, there should be knowledge acquisition so that the skills benefit will be imparted onto other nations. For example, if you look at some of our historical minerals such as diamonds and gold, the knowledge that we have acquired through the participation in mining operations in plant and machinery, as we speak, we are able to impart that skills, transfer to a number of other developing partners. And that's why one of our key strategic overtures speaks about the geological knowledge base. That's the first issue, of course. And secondly, because we are a proponent of a rules-based system, this also in South Africa. So the second key imperative, we speak about the governance standards as it relates to economic, social, and environmental aspects. That includes the rules base that governs the spectrum of mining practices from your very first inception to acquire a mining license to, of course, the obligations as it relates to social and labor plans. The third aspect, we speak about, the important pillar of investment and local economic development. So our strategy, encourage your FDI's inflows and through local partnership, the advancement of local economic development, aka your indigenous populace, should be, of course, prioritized. And then fourthly, and I concur, of course, also with my sister from the DRC, the critical leverage that we should uphold is resilience and the diversification of your your value chains. That is of course paramount. That includes, you know, the promotion of non-discriminatory trade diversification and you know, the accompanying thereof of supply routes. The fifth one we speak about, of course, the need for increased innovation, circularity, and a technological base. And the last, of course, once again, like what my brother from Botswana have said, the emphasis on our people that are really the trustees of all these minerals in terms of skills development and human capacity transfer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister Botes. Moving to Chief Security Advisor Matulianis. You mentioned in the first round some steps taken by the European Union in critical minerals. Now asking you your national strategies, if you would like to add more from the EU perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I already mentioned something in this regard, but as not the biggest EU country, as you understand, of course, we try to harmonize our policies with the European Union, and we value very much the single European market. Lithuania as a country, since inception in the EU, has doubled, or even more than doubled, almost tripled GDP per capita, and we transformed from a traditional industry and agriculture-based country into a country which is a technologically developed country, and living standard is now higher than some old EU member states. And because we don't have resources, but we have people, and they are educated, and therefore we would like to have in the future unimpeded access to all possible technological components, and critical minerals is inseparable from this development. And therefore we are in development of Lithuanian semiconductor sector, and some components for semiconductors are produced in Lithuania, and also we have a laser technology used for printing of chips. And we are really very proud that we are moving in this regard, and therefore it's of great interest to us to have a long-term solution. Long-term solution is based more or less what my predecessor just said, on multilateral rules of the game. They have to be. We have to follow rules of the game for unimpeded, free access to critical minerals, but at the same time, this is my personal view, we have to work on the EU side on some additional relaxation of trade policy towards countries which also dealing with extraction and processing, and then it would be a two-way street. And this is also important. And if you are able in the long run to do it, to have a global agreement on critical minerals, resistance from economic coercion and non-market elements, then of course that would be great success. Then we have a future. And well, all of us, not only developed countries, but also all countries. And also we are very much interested in joining Pact Silica. This is a specific, like-minded grouping, not Lithuania as a country, but European Union is also now negotiating on joining Pax Silica, which is of great importance to have a secure supply chain for semiconductor sector, which is vital for development of artificial intelligence, advanced defense technologies, and even green transition is also related to that partially. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are coming close to the closure of our panel. Thank you very much for for your valuable perspectives, your reflections. I think we heard many common challenges, and concentration is one of them. High concentration along the supply chain and how to address it, and common directions, common solutions. Of course, different strategies, but very important strategies to contribute to a more secure and resilient and value-added future in critical mineral supply chains. People and partnerships in my notes. I heard this from all of you. I think we are going to succeed with people and based on strong, valuable partnerships. And thank you to all for your attendance. Thank you. Thank you.